Hi guys, and welcome to episode 77 of the Crochet Cakes podcast, a podcast about crochet, yarn, sewing, knitting, and anything else that might catch my fancy. It's been 2 weeks since I last spoke to you, and it's been a pretty weird 2 weeks. I know that in some places it's been a pretty weird month or a pretty weird couple of months, and I'm of course referring to the huge elephant in the room that is not really in this room, it's kind of in everybody else's room. And I'm just talking a little bit about COVID-19 in case you're watching this in the future and that's no longer a concern, then you have some reference. I actually have not been doing as much crocheting as I was assuming I would do, given that my situation has changed since I last spoke to you. Due to COVID-19, I have been furloughed, I've been laid off. But it's not really a layoff because you're still considered an employee. You just don't go to work and you don't get paid, but whenever the company calls you, you can go back to work and they don't have to deal with all the paperwork that they did to hire a new employee. That's all it basically means. So technically, I'm just, I'm jobless right now, and it's not the best time to go looking for a job, but I'm considering this a blessing in disguise, and I've been putting almost all of my efforts into working on my blog and making sure it's as amazing as possible for you and for me, because I want to make navigating my blog a pleasant experience. And like as I said, that's what I've been working on for these past couple of weeks. So instead of doing crochet, I've been going all in on my blog. I developed a logo for it, a very simple logo. It took me a whole day to just get what I wanted to say, but I finally got there in the end, so that's good. That's where I wanted to get. I've been experimenting with a couple of blog designs and trying to see just what works for me, and I've ultimately come to the conclusion that I may as well just take a web design course, web development course, and just make my own, because I haven't found aspects. I found aspects of things I want in different themes, but I can't combine the themes to get what I want, essentially. So the only solution I see to that is actually just creating my own theme on WordPress. So web development courses it is. And the reason I'm kind of so gung-ho about this blog right now is because it's the first opportunity I've had to actually pay my full attention to the blog. While I was working, I was dividing my time, between housework and blogging and pattern designing. So there were a lot of things in which to divide my day, and now that I'm only focusing on blogging and just making this an actual business for me, it's great. It's great. I love the experience. And the reason I just started was because, as I said, it's just I now have more time, but also I bought the Sorella method. It's her course on blogging, her experiences with blogging and pattern designing and things like that. And I bought the course. You can find it on sorellamethod.com. All the links, as always, will be down below. So that's really what I've been up to. I've also been doing a lot of social media, even when I'm not posting, I'm there looking around, replying to comments, and I know that a lot of people are taking this opportunity to host CALs, which is an excellent way of all of us to stay connected and participate, not only through social media, but to Ravelry, via blogs, anywhere that you can find a CAL to participate in. And some of the CALs that I've noticed and I've thought about participating in, I just actually haven't, because as I said, I haven't really been crocheting that much, are a Granny Square CAL by HG Designs Crochet, I believe it is. I'm gonna double check real quick. Yes, HG Designs Crochet. It's called the #HGDC Granny Calm. That's the CAL. I'll include the hashtag down below. There's also the Make Lemonade CAL or MAL, which is hosted by Faye from the Crochet Circle podcast, and there's a cowl that Emma just ran on her blog, and it's for hexagon blanket. So it's basically crochet a hexagon a day and add it to the blanket. And I believe that the archive cowl just ended, and that was a cowl that was hosted by KCACY podcast, and it was an amazing idea of basically digging into your stash and finding yarns or patterns that have been in your archives. You've been meaning to make them for a long while, you've just never gotten around to it, which I have a lot of patterns that fit that description. I have a lot of yarns that also fit that description, and I think Black Sheep Wools is also running the Spice of Life blanket mal again, which I have the second version, the Spicier Life of blanket, which hasn't seen the light of day in about since I moved to Florida two years ago. 3 almost. Yeah, so those just little tidbits of things have been going on. I've also been watching some daily vlogs. I've been watching Crafting and Treats daily vlog, and Allie from Starry Eyes Allie and the Little Drops of Wonderful podcast. Yes. And of course, been watching Hannah and Claudia of Crochet Luna just came out with a new podcast. So I'm just glad that everyone is, where they can, is taking this opportunity to give us these podcasts so we can still feel connected and part of the community, even though we're all trying to isolate. Florida has finally said that we are officially on lockdown. You can only go out to get groceries and the pharmacy, and if you're an essential worker. My husband is considered an essential worker, so he still has to go to work every day, which, we're trying to take every precaution possible. He comes home, I open the door, he disinfects his car, comes in, washes his hands, and then he goes out and cleans everything that he may or may not have touched, takes his clothes off, puts them in the washroom, so there's as little contact with germs as possible. So there's just some ways that our life has been changing, but positives. I've been spending a lot of time with my dog. His birthday was yesterday, the 4th of April, so I baked him a little doggy cake, which I will have posted about on Instagram on live. Not live, on the stories. I'm trying to, as I said, still keep active through Instagram stories and share everything that's not yarn related through Instagram stories. So if you don't follow me on Instagram but would like to, please go ahead. And it's crochet cakes everywhere. All the links will be down below to anything I've mentioned or talked about. But let's just go forward and with some crafty content. I don't have any crochet finished objects to share with you, but I do have some sewing finished objects. I went on a little bit of a sewing kick because I'm participating in the Stitchcraft and Wizardry swap, and it's a second sock syndrome swap. So the idea behind it is that you get assigned a partner and you each knit one sock and you mail each other the yarn that was left over, and so then you can knit the other sock. So essentially you are knitting 2 socks but with 2 different yarns. So it was up to you if you wanted to keep your sock and then just send them the yarn and they send you the yarn so you can have a pair of mismatching socks. Unfortunately, this swap is closed. The partners have already been assigned and it started on the 25th of March. So anyway, long story short, I wanted to provide some little extra things that just warrant the sock to my partner. So I sewed some stuff. I finished sewing this little project bag. It's a sock project bag, and it's Alice in Wonderland fabric by Rifle Paper Co., if I'm not mistaken. And I got this at fabric.com. And I sewed a matching crochet hook case for it. And it's super, super padded and squishy. And it's got an extra big pocket on the side so you can put a pair of scissors, maybe a little notebook, something like that. And you just roll it up and boom. So I made that for her. And then I made one for myself because, as I mentioned in the last episode, I got the Clover Amour crochet hook sets. And this one's, it's riddled with mistakes. I haven't sewn in a year, and I got a new sewing machine that my neighbor gave me. It's a Bernina Virtuosa 160, so it's very, very high quality, very high class. Sews like a dream, even though it's pretty there in years. But anyway, it was a new machine to get used to, and it meant that my stitches are not straight. But who cares? I love this fabric, and this is a Dear Stella fabric, and it's got a zipper so you can put your notions in there too, and you can always have your a set to take with you when you travel, or just to put in a project bag, or whatever you choose. And this is not the only 3 things I have sewn. I also sewed a little mug rug, or mug cozy, or just whatever you want to call it, coaster. I sewed this to test the machine, and you can see lines weren't so straight, but it's a coaster and it's for me. I forgive myself. And the last thing I sewed is for the giveaway winner that I will be announcing right after I show you what I was giving away. So this giveaway was announced on the episode that aired before I turned 30, and I basically said, just comment down below if something you think you wish someone would have told you when you turned 30. And I had so many lovely comments. I really loved all of them, and it was great of you to share your experiences and your advice. It's very well appreciated. And so I wanted to, other than the 2 hanks of yarn that I'm giving away, this was part of a Knit Crate subscription, and it's made in Maine by Dun Roving Yarns. It's hand painted, and the colors are showing up very true to color. It's just got basically all the colors in the color wheel in this hank of yarn, and it is a DK weight yarn, 100% superwash merino. And I sewed a project bag to go with it because they needed a little home. And this is in a bird's fabric, which has my favorite colors. There's the chartreuse, which you all know I love, and then there's little aquas and some corals and red oranges. I love this little bird fabric. I had originally sewed a blouse. The first ever garment I sewed was with this fabric, but I didn't like it, so I don't really use it. But I do love the fabric. And then inside, it's the same fabric that you see on the handle. I lined it with that on the inside, and it's got a pocket, just so you can put your crochet hook and all that type of stuff. And it's got hard lining because I like my bags with hard lining. Now the size is a little bit of, I'm a little annoyed with the size. I have to be 100% honest, because I wanted more of a bucket bag, but a bucket bag that you could fit 2 hanks of yarn and a project in there. But what I got was this. Hey, it's not the shape I was going for, but it's a very nicely made bag, so I'm gonna roll with it. And the 2 hanks of yarn do fit in there quite nicely. And congratulations to Annie O'Sullivan. Please get in touch with me and I will send that package safely your way. And please remember to disinfect before you open. I think the project will fit in there well too. So that's it for the sewing segment, which is not really a segment. I just happen to sew quite a lot. And actually, I'm thinking that maybe I'll probably cut the pattern today if I have time for a little jersey dress. We'll see how that goes. Right, so why don't we move on with some crochet. I do have a crochet finished object. I just can't share it with you because it's the design I had submitted to Knit Crate, and I still haven't heard back from them if it's accepted or not, and I would like to hear back from them because if they don't accept it, no harm, no foul, no bruise. I wouldn't be hurt, but it's already written up and graded, and I can publish it on the blog for you guys because it's going to be a free pattern. Just a little, I guess, a spoiler alert. I don't think this would affect Knit Crate or not. I sewed it, and my intention for this garment, it's so that it's made in a cotton blend or some type of non-wool blend. the original yarn that I used is a cotton cashmere blend, which I think is perfect because it has the sturdiness of the cotton but the softness of the cashmere. Just 10% of cashmere does a world of difference. Right, so I don't have any projects that I'm making with, oh, actually, lies, I do. I do have projects that I'm making with cotton, and those are the squares that I'm working on for my blanket. This is a blanket that I'm designing using several colors from Knit Picks Snuggle Puff. And Snuggle Puff is a gorgeous soft yarn. It is just a single ply, and it's a cotton acrylic blend. It's 50-50 if I'm not mistaken. No, I lied. It's 70% cotton, 30% nylon, and it's Aran heavy worsted weight. You can use 6mm to 8mm hook or needle, and I'm using a 5mm hook, and I think it works up beautifully in a 5mm hook. It doesn't feel tight at all. You can see the drape of the yarn. It just falls. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I have 1, 2, 3 squares that I have made in 2 weeks, which is, it's kind of sad really, but just look at those colors together. Aren't they gorgeous? I'm holding up kind of a salmon-y pink color, or chartreuse, because hello, it's me. And kind of a robin egg blue, and they just look beautiful, beautiful together. So what I figured out making this is that these squares weigh 36 grams. And that means that I bought 2 balls of each color. So that means that out of each ball, I get 1 full square, but with what's left over, I get a square minus the final row. Because what I have left over is 30 grams instead of the 36 that I would need to make another square. But it's fine because that just means that for the last row of the square, I can border it in white, and then there'll be more cohesiveness in the colors I have chosen for this pattern. So I'm very happy about that. And that, for those of you who haven't tuned in before, that pattern is written on my blog, not for the blanket, just the square. It is an adaptation of a vintage pattern, and it is, I have named it the Vintage Flower Square because the center kind of looks like a flower. Yeah. So that's me. And the other thing I was going to tell you was that I've decided on a name for this blanket. I'm calling it the Flower Power Blanket, and I'm just very, very excited to keep working with it. And you guys know how me and blankets go, so let's just all cross our fingers and hope that, well, it'll get done. I just hope it gets done this year. But if you have never worked with Knit Picks Snuggle Puff, I highly recommend it. It's exactly as the name suggests, a yarn that you can snuggle up with and cozy up. So I would love to make pillows in this as well. I think those would feel so lovely and squishy. And speaking of lovely and squishy, I'm going to go ahead and show you some knitting now, because as I've already mentioned, I'm knitting a sock for the Second Sock Syndrome Swap knit along that's being hosted by Stitchcraft and Wizardry. And this is my sock. Look at those colors. Now, I know some people would have a problem with the pooling, but I loved how it's just created a diagonal accent, if you ask me. And you can turn it around, and it's just, I really, really liked it. And the pattern that I'm using is the pattern that Anna, she designed for this knit along. And it's got 2 decorations here. The pattern is called Your Bowtiful Socks because the design that's on each side kind of looks like a bow. And the yarn that I'm using is super, super special yarn. It's by Crafternoon Treats. It's eye candy with an attitude, and it's her Corriedale sock base. It's 80% Corriedale Polworth wool and 20% nylon, and it is absolutely gorgeous to work with. I really like it. And now that you saw it knit up, this is what it looks like in a cake. So you can tell it was going to be a pooling yarn because there are very short color changes that are repeated constantly. And if you have no idea how to read a skein of yarn, I really didn't either, but I watched Anna's from Stitchcraft and Wizardry, her How to Read a Skein of Yarn tutorial, and it's great. You should check it out. So why don't I just show you another sock, because it's a sock along, essentially. Because I've also been working on a sock for me, and this has been a year, neglected for a year, and it is the Mercury sock pattern in a beautiful, gorgeous, scrumptious Alice in Wonderland colorway, and it's a self-striping yarn, and it's got the powder blue of the movie Alice, her dress, and it's white for the sash. It's got a creamy skin tone for Alice's skin tone, yellow or blonde, golden blonde for her hair, and then black for her bandana. So it's a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous colorway, and this one is by, oh my goodness, Moose and Ewe Yarns. Ewe is written E-W-E, like the animal. And it's in her squish sock base, which is 85% extra fine superwash merino, 15% nylon. And it is really squishy and really lovely. I haven't really worked on this sock this week, but I am past the heel, which is in itself something to celebrate. Now, while I'm on this sock kick, I'm also going to share with you a crochet sock that I started designing yesterday. But the design for this sock had been in the works for, at least in my mind, for a little while. When I was watching Stitchcraft and Wizardry podcast, Anna was crocheting the vintage Wives Socks, which is a sock that I designed. It's a free pattern on my blog. It's designed for self-striping yarn with kind of like a 120-inch repeat. So each color should be 120 inches long, which I know is not really that long for a self-striping yarn. So you could, of course, achieve the effect by just changing yarn in every row. And since you work it in a spiral, it wouldn't be that much harder to do. But anyway, so she was crocheting the socks, and now bear in mind, Anna knits beautiful socks. So this was her first time crocheting a sock, and she said they felt more like slippers, which is true. Crochet socks can be worked either as a slipper or as a sock. Just depends on the yarn you're using, how thick the yarn feels. It depends on a lot of things. But anyway, the point was that her husband said he would like a pair of crochet slippers to have around the house, and she mentioned that maybe she could convince me to design a pair of Star Wars socks, and she could make him one. Challenge accepted. So in my mind, I was going to design a pair of socks that reminded me of the planet Tatooine, and the specific scene in the first new Star Wars movie when Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin and the Queen of Naboo are all fleeing, and when they make that first approach to Tatooine, you kind of see the sand dunes and craters. That's the scene that was going to inspire me to design these Tatooine socks. And I received couple of stitch dictionaries for my birthday, so I was browsing through them and finally found the squished singles stitch, crochet stitch, and it reminded me of grains of sand flowing just around the wind, which, hello, Tatooine, you get sandstorms. Perfect. Not so much, because when you crochet the stitch flat, it does look like sand dunes, but then when you crochet it in the round, it looked completely different. Crocheted in the round, it reminded me of Endor. And I'm going to make a quick pause here because I'm going to find the stitch samples. I do still have them. So this is the squished single stitch crocheted flat, and you can see, to me anyway, it looks just a bunch of grains floating in the wind, and that's exactly what I was going for these Tatooine socks. But crocheted in the round, it looked like something entirely different. Pull it up closer to the camera. Yeah. So you can see if I stretch the stitch out a little bit that it kind of looks, to me, it looked like treetops and then the vines connecting them or the bridges connecting them. So that immediately brought to mind Endor. And specifically when the rebels are captured by the Ewoks and then they're taken to their village and you see all this beautiful greenery connected by bridges. So that is what inspired this sock design. And not only am I super excited about the stitch I'm using, but the yarn. The yarn is a gorgeous, gorgeous yarn that I'm very lucky to have in my collection because it's Emmy Couture yarns. And she is no longer dyeing yarn. I got this in a massive sale that she did. Everything was around 40% off, and if you bought yarn packs, they were even cheaper. And the yarn packs just basically were choose a color and I'll send you all the yarns I have that fit that color. I think she sent 4 or 5 hanks of yarn that fit that color. So I chose green, of course, and I got this gorgeous beauty of green. I would say it's a tonal green with light speckles and it just looks like a Venus flytrap. It's got so many tones of green. You've got deep mossy greens, lighter lime greens, and some parts that are white even. And it's just gorgeous. So I already started. I did my little toe. Just my normal toe, which I've been calling my U-toe, but for some reason this time when I crocheted it, I thought it looked more like a mushroom toe. So who knows, I might change the name. But this is all I've worked up till now. There's 2 rows. And you can see what these squished singles look like. Ignore my nails, I forgot the state they were in. But this is just a pattern I'm working along and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm crocheting it with a 3mm hook, and this is a gorgeous, gorgeous hook that I bought from Stitchcraft and Wizardry. It's an almond hook and I love crocheting with it. It's so lightweight and it stands up. I don't know why I got such a kick out of that, but I did. So the other crochet that I've been working on is my 6 Wives shawl, and I haven't actually worked on it a lot. Now I'm gonna warn you right now, I posted a picture of this on Instagram and a couple of people were scared that it was a reptile because it does look like a reptile. It's not. It's crochet, I promise. And it's living in this Betsy Makes bag. It's the second Betsy Makes bag that I have in my collection, and I just love the mustard yellow with the teals and the pinks. Love it. I'm not a big flower person, but if you get the right color on the flower, might fall for it. So this 6 Wives shawl, I have lost the ball band. I'm hating myself right now. Maybe it's in the pockets. Maybe it's in the pockets. No, it's not in the pockets. So anyway, this is a woolen vine yarn, and the color is called Solstice, and it is in her Volca base, which is an MCN base, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken on the name of the base, but this is an MCN base, which is merino cashmere nylon, if you aren't used to the lingo. Anyway, so the yarn is basically an off-white base with speckles of taupe and gray, and there's even some blues and yellows there. It's just got very light speckling all around. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous color. Here we are. This is what it looks like. I'm unraveling it because if I leave it together, it just looks like a snake. Honestly, it does. So the 6 Wives shawl is a pattern designed by Emma Potter from Potter and Bloom, and it is inspired by the 6 Wives of Henry VIII. The main hank of yarn is chosen to represent Catherine of Aragon, or Catalina Aragon. And she was Henry's first wife, but also his brother's wife. So there was a little bit of a misunderstanding about whether or not that was allowed, legano and illegano. Anyway, I chose this colorway to represent Catherine of Aragon because she was very innocent and she did have to navigate some pretty troublesome, uncertain times for her, whether or not she was going to be married to Henry VIII after his brother died and whether or not she was going to be returned to Spain. It was just very uncertain time for her, so she spent most of her youth just asking forgiveness of Henry VII and hoping that he would hear her and, you know, provide for her while she was in the English court. And crocheting this while listening to Alison Weir's book, The 6 Wives of Henry VIII, which is a historical book. It's not historical fiction. And it's just really fun to listen to all of that. Now, I haven't actually been reading much except my blog course and my crochet stitch dictionary. But other than that, I haven't been reading a lot of the books that I've previously mentioned. I've been reading chapter updates from fan fiction stories that I really like and things like that, but not the books that I've mentioned before, except for the Alison Weir one. So that really is me in this crafty venture, crafty 2 weeks. I got a lot of sewing done, which is good. I haven't sewn in so long. But what else did I want to say? Oh yeah, I rented Leap Year on Friday because in my mind it had a lot of Irish scenery. It really doesn't. At least it doesn't have the amount of scenery that I was building up in my brain. And the only reason I'm I'm trying to find more scenery like that is because Instagram has been hounding me with Outlander commercials, and nothing against Outlander. Well, I don't have anything against Outlander per se. I just got really pissed off when they spend 20 years apart. It's like, really? And then she keeps putting bad things happening to them, and I'm just, ugh. I got really frustrated. And, hello. Okay, I understand that Claire is from, 1940s time, but she was a nurse after World War II. You're gonna tell me she's not gonna be more badass than what she was? No, I'm not buying it. So, anyway, I wanted to watch some Irish scenery, and I know Leap Year is in Ireland, but Ireland and the Scottish Highlands have beautiful sceneries respectively, and I just wanted to bask in that greenery, especially, now that you're not really allowed to leave your house. Well, I want to live vicariously through all these movies that have already been filmed that show beautiful, beautiful scenery, and yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna stop my rants here, and I will simply say that I hope that you've had a crafty couple of weeks. I hope I've been able to bring a little bit of sunshine into your day, even though the day I'm filming this, it's very dark and gray outside, but lights, so you can't tell. If you are the winner for the giveaway, then please do not forget to message me on Ravelry or Instagram or anywhere you choose, your email, your address. So if you, contact me through Ravelry or through my blog. If you write a comment through the blog, it won't be public because you can just go to the contact section on my blog and write me a direct message through there. And it won't be public, but please give a valid email address that I can reach you at and provide so we can exchange information and you can give me your address. And I think I'm just rambling now. So I'm gonna go and drink some more mimosa. I had one mimosa while I was waiting for the folding part of my sourdough, because I do have a sourdough that's going to go into the oven later this evening, which is going to be great because I love fresh bread. If you have never made bread, now's the time. if you can find flour, because apparently everybody wants to make bread. But anyway, I hope you guys have a very happy, crafty couple of weeks. And until I see you again in 2 weeks' time, bye! Get your thoughts together, okay? Okay. Piensa y después habla porque si no vas a estar aquí una eternidad.